Do you enjoy writing? Have you ever wanted to make an income as a writer? These days, the opportunities are endless, whether it's self-publishing or doing it the traditional way. However, to be successful, there are some things that you need to know to help you along the way. And that's just what you'll find in this video class, consisting of 8 bite-sized video lessons. Hello, I'm Peter, and welcome along to how to be a successful writer and get published. Understanding what publishers really want isn't as easy as one might think. Many writers believe they have a fantastic story within them, and if you are writing purely for your own pleasure or simply have a need to write down whatever brilliant, informative, exciting story you have, that is great. If you want your writing to sell, however, that is something completely different. Writing for a living requires thought, careful planning, and a thorough understanding of what publishers are looking for. In terms of fiction writing, this is particularly true, as competition is fierce and demand changes all the time, and most publishers only pick a select few titles each year. Because of this, it's really important that you do your research and do it before you start if you want to give yourself the best chance of being accepted by a publishing house. First, publishers want to make money. A simple truth that perhaps isn't always truly considered by many writers before they begin. Publishers need to be sure they can sell your work and sell it enough that it makes it financially viable for them. They look for specific factors that are tried and tested. They know their audiences better than anyone. They know what they want, and if your work doesn't match that, it will fall at the first hurdle. Check the length. Something as simple as ensuring you are writing to the right length is so important. If you're hoping to have an article or story featured in a magazine, then do your research to find out what the accepted word count is. Publishers of novels also have strict ideas about length. Most are simply not interested in publishing a work of fiction that is under 60,000 words, and particularly if you're a new writer, they prefer the story to be no more than 120,000 words. Non-fiction books vary greatly in length. However, if your work is less than 35,000 words, this is likely to leave many publishers questioning its worth. Next, research the market. Works of fiction need to have a strong plot, engaging characters, and originality. You may have an excellent story about a boy wizard, but unless you can tell it in a totally unusual way, and even then you may struggle, you are unlikely to be even considered. Try not to fall into the trap of thinking that because a particular book has brought an author fame and fortune, if you write a similar tale, that you will be immediately snapped up. Non-fiction writers must be able to prove that they have a strong knowledge of their subject matter and be able to present that knowledge in a highly interesting and unique way. Next, proofread. All writers, regardless of their subject matter, must take care with how they present their writing. Publishers won't be able to overlook poor sentence construction, misspellings and bad grammar, regardless of how good your work is. Next, don't be a one-trick pony. If you can prove to a publisher that you will be able to write additional stories, novels or non-fiction books, you'll be immediately more appealing to them. Stick to the same genre, build up an audience of loyal fans, make it a no-brainer for a publisher to keep taking on your work. Be cooperative. Everyone likes an easy life, so if you do get accepted for publication, then do everything you can to keep your publisher on side. Help promote your work by marketing it yourself. Always meet deadlines and follow guidelines, and generally be a pleasant and cooperative person to work with. No one said getting published was easy, and the bottom line is that it takes hard work, dedication and a thick skin. However, if you prepare yourself properly and make sure you ask yourself if you are really writing something publishers will want, then you stand the very best chance of success. Sometimes it can be difficult to know whether our stories are any good. And let's face it, the sooner we find out for sure, the better. It can be all too easy to get halfway through writing a story only to realise it just isn't going to work. And there isn't anything much more frustrating to a writer than the discovery their story just can't go anywhere. So, what can you do to decipher whether your story is any good? Try asking yourself the following. Have you sketched out the entire thing? Making sure that your story will work is just good common sense. Whether it's a short story or an entire novel, by sketching out the basic plot, doing chapter outlines and ensuring that you really do have an entire story there that you can feel confident that will work when you start writing it out. Do your characters excite you? An exciting cast of characters will make or break your story. Make sure you pay attention to every character in your story and that they all have a purpose, are intriguing and make your reader care. Is there a journey? Your story should take the characters and the reader on a journey. It should have ups and downs and highs and lows, and there should be obstacles that your characters need to overcome. Making sure that you have a well thought out journey will mean your story is on the right track. How's the pace? Pay attention to the pacing of your story. You can tell if the pace is good just by reading over it. Are there parts that you skip over or parts that feel tedious and slow? Does too much happen too quickly? Your pace is an essential part of your story, so make sure you get it right. Can you imagine the world you have created? Paying attention to setting and detail is another excellent way to ensure you're writing a good story. You should be able to picture the world you've created vividly. If you can't, it suggests that something important is missing. Are you showing or telling? Yes, it's the age-old advice of show, don't tell. It's important to make sure that you aren't directing your readers too much, or that you are making it impossible for them to immerse themselves in your story, because they can hear your voice telling them what happens all the time. While there are some instances where telling is the most economical and straightforward way to relay information to your reader, if this happens too often, it will be off-putting and could make your story seem bad. By asking yourself these questions, you can decide whether your story is any good and therefore whether it's worth pursuing. Ask yourself these questions before you start, and you'll begin your story confident that it's worth writing in the first place and that you won't be wasting your time. One of the most helpful things you can do as a writer is to identify who your reader is. No matter what you're writing about, figuring out exactly who will want to read your work and what their reaction will be to it is so important, right from when you start to create your work through to pitching and marketing it. To help you create a piece of writing that will appeal to your reader, you need to be able to get inside their head. The more thorough an understanding you have of who they are and what they want, the more easily you will be able to mold and shape your writing so it will appeal to them. Of course, this might be easier said than done. However, by making an effort to get to know your reader and to truly understand them, you'll be able to appeal to them more through your writing, to influence them and to turn them into loyal fans. So, what are the things you can do to try and get inside your reader's head? Let's take a look. First, do your research. Start off by doing some simple research. Think about the genre your writing falls into and the kind of person that might be interested in that type of book. You could even go into bookshops and look at the different people browsing in that section, or join fan clubs and get to know the kind of conversations they might have. Next, get feedback all along the way. Make sure you don't wait until you've already finished your book or piece of writing to get that feedback. Ask your readers questions and get feedback throughout the writing process. This will make it so much easier when you go back and begin to edit and reshape your book. Next, look at what other writers are doing. One of the most helpful things you can do is follow your fellow writers and look at the different techniques they are using to engage readers and pique their interest. Look at successful writers in genres similar to yours. How does your writing compare? What do their book covers look like? What does the blurb on the back say? Check out their social media accounts, their author profiles, their websites. Find all the information you can and see what reoccurring themes are there that you could apply to your writing and marketing plans. Use actual data. There are plenty of programs out there which can give you a real insight into your readers, your potential readers, and their behaviour. Even just looking at your engagement on social media and trying to get a picture of the types of people that are interested in what you are saying can help you to build up a picture of who your ideal reader might be. Create a persona. Once you've gathered together as much information as possible, use this to create an ideal reader persona. Write down as much as you can about them and stick up the details near to where you write. You can then always refer to this and always keep them in mind when you're writing. If you're stuck, then you can use them to help you. Simply ask yourself what your reader would want to happen. And if you know them well enough, you should have your answer. Getting inside your reader's head can make a difference when it comes to the popularity and success of your book. So it's well worth trying to get to know your reader and use this knowledge to help shape your writing. One thing that all writers need is boundless creativity. However, sometimes it can be challenging to get those creative juices flowing. Achieving creative greatness is not something that just happens overnight. It takes time and effort. It takes making mistakes and learning from them. It takes hard work and applying yourself even when you are feeling creatively lacking. So often we assume it's raw talent that makes certain people stand out and achieve more, or even that they just got lucky. However, if you want to feel wholly wonderfully creative, it is actually by putting the time in and dedicating yourself to your art that you are most likely to achieve your goal. So, how can you find ways to be more creative and achieve creative greatness? Here are some useful tips. Our first tip is just begin. Every great writer started out somewhere, and when they did, they probably weren't even that good. You'll never feel effortlessly creative unless you start trying. So even if it feels laborious, painful and slow at first, just keep applying yourself and soon you'll start to see your productivity increase and those ideas and words start to flow. Our next tip, make your creativity your priority. If you want to achieve creative greatness, you have to follow your passion with a desire and hunger like no other. It's all too easy to think of your creative projects as hobbies or add-ons to your day-to-day life. If that's your attitude, you'll never honestly apply yourself and find it hard to improve. Start taking your creativity seriously and make time for being creative a priority in your life. Next, never miss an opportunity to be creative. There are opportunities to be creative at every turn, if you look hard enough for them, that is. Almost everything can be turned into a more exciting, more adventurous, more experimental, more creatively freeing moment if you are ready and willing and going to push to make it so. Don't let creative opportunities pass you by. Stay alert and be prepared to follow wherever the creativity takes you. Know that not everything can work is our next tip. Creativity is about experimentation and failure as much as it is about adventuring and success. You have to take risks and you have to make mistakes. Not every idea you have will be great. Not every project will be well received. Just know that that's okay. And being creative is a learning curve. Learn from your errors and failures and you'll always be improving. Next, get feedback whenever you can. There's plenty to learn from others when it comes to being creative, so learn to solicit advice and feedback and also how to take that advice and feedback on board. You don't have to listen to every piece of advice you get given. You don't have to change your work just because someone doesn't like it. You can be skeptical about other people's advice and opinions and make sure you don't dismiss them or shut them out just because you don't want to hear it either. And next, enjoy the adventure. Creativity is exciting and often hits you unexpectedly, but it's also a measured practice that takes discipline and control. Enjoy all aspects of creativity, the parts where you get to feel free and adventurous as much as those where you need to practice to work or find something challenging. If you can embrace all parts of it, you'll be that much closer to achieving creative greatness. Creativity is such an integral part of any writer's success. Finding ways to be more creatively free, as well as how to tune into your creativity, to hone it and shape it and turn it into something useful for your work, are all critical skills. The more we are able to do so, the better writers we will become. Whatever kind of writing you're working on, one of the most common mistakes is trying too hard and making it overly complicated. This is true whether you're writing a blog or a novel. Many writers can get so caught up in wanting to come across as impressive or intelligent that they forget that some of the most influential writing is not full of ridiculously long and complicated words or overly convoluted sentences. Instead, there's a great beauty to be found in simplicity, and often the most uncomplicated writing has the most significant effect. Writing simply but effectively is an important quality for any writer. Remember, you always have a finite number of words to write with, and therefore should make each and every one of them count. By being too flowery with your language, by being painstakingly detailed with your descriptions, by using language that your readers will struggle to understand, you are isolating them rather than drawing them in. While a reader may be able to forgive this once or twice if your prose is littered with such errors, they will soon lose interest in what you have to say and eventually give up altogether. So, how can you reassess your writing to ensure that you are keeping it simple and therefore delivering the greatest impact? Here are some useful tips. Be factual and direct. In journalistic writing, one of the most common pieces of advice given is to ensure you cover all the facts. You can do so by asking yourself the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. There's no reason why you can't apply this to your fiction writing too. When you're trying to set the scene, establish a new character, or relay to the reader exactly what is happening when using these questions can help you ensure that you have all your bases covered. Build pictures. For your reader to enjoy your writing, they want to be immersed in what they are reading. And to do so, they need to be able to build pictures in their mind's eye. You don't need to over-explain what's going on. Instead, use simple but effective detailing to create images. Do this by appealing to the 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Ensure your language is precise and the descriptions you use are sharp and effective without going overboard. Inspire an emotional response. In order for your writing to be effective, you need to create emotion in your reader. Try to picture your ideal reader. What kind of person are they? What do they want or need? What are they afraid of, excited or intrigued by? The better you understand your reader, the easier it will be to direct them to feel a certain way about what you've written. If you can get your readers to invest in your story emotionally, you will have them hooked. Think about beginnings and endings. While your overall piece should have an enormous impact on your reader, it is also essential to break it down further. Pay attention to how you open and close each chapter, then go deeper and examine how you start and finish each paragraph. Simple, effective writing takes a lot of work, but the more time you spend refining your writing, the better it will be and the greater impression it will have. So just keep practicing. Take your time and use the strategies that we've already mentioned, and you'll soon see what a difference it makes to your writing and how much more powerful and effective it can be. Creating deadlines for yourself is one of the most important and productive things you can do as a writer. Without them, it's all too easy to keep putting your writing tasks on the back burner and never getting anything done. Without deadlines, our goals and aspirations can fade away, and the more we leave our writing tasks for another day, the further away and more unachievable those dreams become. On the other hand, setting writing deadlines that are unrealistic and unachievable can also damage your writing career. If you continuously miss those deadlines, no matter how hard you try, you'll inevitably feel like you're a failure and will undoubtedly begin to beat yourself up about it, which will damage your confidence and potentially slow your writing productivity down even more. So, what can you do to set realistic deadlines that push yourself but not too much? First, do the math. Start from your end goal and work backwards to see if it makes sense. If you want to have written your book by the end of the year, then think about everything you need to do to achieve that. Work out the time you have and figure out whether this is realistic or not. If it isn't, don't feel bad about shifting the goalposts back a little. It's also a good idea to factor in some time for things to go a little off track, but don't give yourself so much time that it's easy to procrastinate and do nothing for months on end. You need to make sure you are challenging yourself too. Next, get into the right frame of mind. When it comes to sitting down to write, you'll know what makes you at your most focused, creative and productive. If you set aside all your writing time for 5 a.m. when you know you hate getting up early, you'll probably quickly find it's pretty tough to live up to your expectations. Make sure that you've set time to write when you know there will be few distractions and you'll feel motivated and excited to do it. And next, understand what you are capable of. Be realistic about what you can expect from yourself. If you aren't, you're just setting yourself up for a fall. You don't have to be the most prolific and dedicated writer in the world. You just need to figure out what works for you. Ask yourself where you want to be, when you want to get there, and what you are truly capable of, and then create your deadlines around that. Next, use a timer. Using a timer can be a really helpful way of making sure you stick to your planned writing sessions. If you say you are going to write for an hour 3 times a week, each time you sit down to set a timer for that amount of time, make sure you don't go over or under your time. Doing more can be damaging, as you then don't have time for other tasks which could leave you feeling stressed out and resenting your writing, which will put you off doing it again. And next, take breaks. Make sure you take regular breaks away from your writing. If you get too immersed in it, you may end up burning yourself out. It's always good to finish a writing session on a high and start each new one feeling refreshed and ready to work. Next, be strict with yourself. Once you've set yourself a goal and a deadline, it's time to stop making excuses. It's all too easy to start negotiating with yourself, but this won't get you anywhere, and you'll end up feeling really guilty and disappointed with yourself. So once a deadline has been set, do everything in your power to stick with it. Reward yourself. Rewarding yourself for achieving your goals within your allotted time frame can be a great incentive. Come up with some small and large rewards to entice you to keep on going. And next, be okay with imperfections. Remember, you aren't going to have a great writing session every time you write, nor are you going to be happy with what you've written all the time. Don't dwell on imperfections, and don't let your own self-doubt or negativity stop you from reaching a deadline. Setting realistic writing deadlines is crucial to keep you motivated, moving forward, and feeling satisfied with your writing. So next time you start a writing project, use these tips to help create your goals and timetable, and you'll give yourself the best chance of staying on track. Good writers have high emotional intelligence. One of the most important things a writer must do is to captivate their readers. To do so, they need to understand what draws people in. Being able to capture and express emotions in their writing is crucial. A reader needs to feel emotionally connected to the characters in a story, so a writer needs to be perceptive about emotions and use their emotional intelligence to create empathetic characters. Lots of discipline. Great writers are extremely disciplined individuals. They have to be. Writing is an art and something which takes time, dedication and practice to get right. No one can make a writer write, so without self-discipline, it's so hard to continue to get things done. A love of words. Writers love language and find words truly fascinating. A good writer is always exploring and testing language and discovering unusual and unique ways to use it in their work, finding ways to improve their vocabulary and to perfectly capture a feeling or an image by using words is a writer's greatest joy. A profound interest in people. Writers don't have to love people, but they need to be interested in them. Great books come alive because of the incredible characters within them. Writers only write astonishing characters by keenly observing people all around them and taking what they see and hear in real life and translating this effectively onto the page. Incredible imaginations. Excellent writing requires a vivid and extraordinary imagination. Writers make up entire people with entire lives, living in entirely made-up worlds. While writers use their own experiences, feelings, and what they observe in the world around them in their books, it is their use of imagination that gives their stories life and excitement and makes them truly magical. Bags of creativity. Being creative is part of a writer's life. Being creative is all about seeing the world in a new and interesting way, in problem solving, being innovative, using initiative, using connections, and being imaginative. Excellent observational skills. Writers are like sponges. They keep their eyes and ears open all the time. They watch and absorb everything from the way people interact and talk to how the sky looks just before the sun appears. They observe it all and try to find the words to describe what they have seen. Self-motivation. Writers have the constant challenge of being their own bosses or managing their own time, of having to market themselves and organize themselves, let alone find any time actually to write. Being self-motivated is a huge part of any writer's life, and the more self-motivation a writer has, the better they will be. Many writers don't consider the genre they are writing in until their book is written. It's easy to believe that once you've finished writing your novel, that it will become immediately obvious which category it falls into. And when you are undertaking tasks such as submitting to editors or selecting the genres where your book should sit in Amazon, that it will be easy to define your writing in such a way. However, only considering your genre after you have finished your story can lead to some problems. There are perhaps some stories that are easier to define. A classic romance, thriller or horror story, for example. With many contemporary fiction books, it can be a little more tricky, and in fact you could find your story crosses the boundaries of many different genres. A little bit of romance, but mostly a thriller, a ghost story with some comedy thrown in, and so on. The trouble with not being able to clearly define your genre is that you then cannot clearly define your audience. One of the most important things you should be able to do when submitting your novel to publishers and agents, or when marketing it yourself, is to be able to define who your audience is, to be able to prove that there is a market for your book out there, that there are readers ready and waiting to devour it. If you are vague about your genre, agents and publishers will have a harder time being convinced they can sell your book. Where will it sit in a bookstore? Will readers be annoyed if they pitch it as a romance novel when actually perhaps it is more of a fantasy book? It's the same when you come to choose where to place your book. If self-publishing on sites such as Amazon, if readers disagree with your choice, then you could end up with negative reviews. Readers do not like to be misled after all. So how do you choose a genre to write in? First of all, write with an audience in mind. You should always consider your reader when you write. Before you start, why not try to identify who your target audience is? Sketch out an idea of what they like. Get to know them. What motivates and inspires them? What makes them tick? Once you understand your reader, you'll have a better idea of the types of books they read, and therefore the genre you should place your book into. Next, read many genres and see what resonates. Writing in a genre you love to read will make your life so much easier. If you love romance novels but try to write a hard-boiled detective story, you might find yourself in trouble. So read lots and lots of different books and then shape your story to fit which genre you like best. And next, go to a bookstore. Look at the books in each section. Where do you see yours going? If you have already written your novel or have your story already mapped out in your head, go to a bookstore to try and help clarify which genre it fits into. Look at books by other authors and see which ones have similar themes to yours. This is also a great way of getting inspiration for your book synopsis and cover too. Our next tip is to create a marketing plan. If you pick a genre that is really obscure, you might find it difficult to know how to market your book. Saying that, a niche genre could help you really focus on specific readers. Creating a marketing plan could help sway you one way or another as you decide what is best for your book. At the end of the day, when it comes to picking a genre to write in, sometimes it's simply a good idea to go with your gut instinct. If you are torn between two, you could even make a pros and cons list to help you choose. Whatever you do, make sure you have a clear idea of the genre you are writing in, ideally before you start to write. Expressing your creativity is one of the best things about being a writer. However, there's always that worry at the back of our minds that one day the ideas might run out. This could happen when you're halfway through a book or when you're trying to come up with your next new idea. While some people may be more naturally creative than others, creativity still requires time, effort, focus, and energy. Even the most creative people could suffer from creative burnout at some point, and if this does happen to you, it can be very troubling indeed. So, what exactly is creative burnout? Feeling uninspired, unable to come up with new ideas, feeling demotivated, procrastinating, feeling emotionally blocked, feeling unable to write, a lack of self-belief, writer's block, and wanting to give up on your writing are all indicative of creative burnout and can be very damaging to your writing career. So, how do you minimize and manage instances of creative burnout to ensure they pass quickly or even better, don't occur at all? Here are some things you can try. Okay, tip number one is practice positive habits. Positive habits can help free up your mind, refresh
and refocus. These can be positive habits around your writing, but also in your day-to-day life. Some people find that going for a run, a walk in the countryside, baking a cake, painting a picture, meditating, socializing with your favorite people, reading a great book, and so on can help to inspire them. In short, focus on what makes you feel creative, free, and motivated, and make these the habits that you fit into your daily routine. Okay, tip number 2, allow yourself to take a break. Often when we have bouts of creative burnout, we can immediately start to beat ourselves up about it, which just leads to a vicious circle of self-loathing and feeling even more demotivated. Instead, just be at peace with doing nothing. Step back from projects and give yourself a break. It may well be that you've simply overworked yourself and need a break to be able to get back to it once more. And our next tip is talk to others. Don't bottle up the way you're feeling. Talk to other people around you. Fellow writers will be able to give you advice and sympathy, and friends and family will lend you their ears and be supportive. Sometimes just talking about how you feel can lift your spirits and help you feel unburdened, lighter, and more able to focus. And next, get to the cause of the problem. Understanding why this is happening to you will help you tackle the cause of the problem and therefore fix it all the sooner. Often there is something quite specific, however subconscious, that has made us feel this way and is blocking our path to creativity. Figure out what it is and then devise a strategy to help overcome these obstacles and get back to work once more. And our final tip is believe it will pass. Feeling uncreative and uninspired can be frightening for anyone who works in a creative role. However, there is no need to panic if this happens to you. Just take a deep breath and follow the tips I've been talking about. Hopefully by doing so, you'll be back to your fabulous creative self in no time.
When it comes to setting up an author website, many of us feel pretty intimidated. We can write stories, sure, but understanding how to make a website eye-catching, well laid out, and remembering to include all the necessary information that's needed can feel a little daunting. If you're about to set up your author website, knowing what's typically included is a good start. Let's look at the 5 main elements every author website should have. Number 1 is a kick-ass homepage. A good first impression is crucial. Your homepage is where most readers will land, and it needs to clearly market who you are as a writer and what you are offering them. Choose a theme that represents your work. If you're a writer of horror stories, romance, comedies, make it obvious from the outset. A well-designed homepage will give your future fans a great first impression. They are more likely to think you are professional and more likely to trust that your work will be of high quality too. Ask yourself, when people arrive on your site, would they know what kind of writing you offer from the outset? Have you set the tone and mood to reflect who you are? Can they easily navigate from the page to other parts of your website without getting confused? Do they know how to buy your book? Next, testimonials. Testimonials are an important way to assure your potential readers that they are buying a professional, well-written book that other people love. If you can get social proof via testimonials from other readers, the press, other authors, the more well-known the better, and even celebrities, this will increase your credibility and make people more likely to buy your book. Next, a bit about you. Readers don't just want to know about your work. They want to know about you as an author too. Make sure you include your personal story. Tell them your history. What makes you a writer? What inspires you? And what kind of books you love? It's important to make your personality come through. Don't write as if you were writing a CV. Make it funny, entertaining, engaging, and interesting. Your readers will feel more connected to you and are more likely to become fans. Make sure you know where to draw the line though. Readers want to get to know you, but they don't need to know every intimate detail of your life. Make sure you include your contact information too, an email address, a phone number if you like, and links to your social media profiles. If you have a media or press kit, make sure you link to that as well. Make sure it's clear where readers can sign up for email updates or your newsletter. This is so important for you, so you can build a contact database and get in touch with fans about future releases and important dates. You can also have a page detailing your latest news and any events you have coming up too. Next, your blog. Every good author website has an associated blog where readers can get to know you better, hear what you're up to, read your musings and get snippets and excerpts of your writing. A good blog is an opportunity to communicate with your readers and will showcase what kind of writer you are. If you can consistently produce interesting and entertaining blogs that are loosely themed around your writing, this will bring your readers closer and make them trust in you more. Next, your book and other products. Of course, one of the main aims for an author website is to increase book sales. It is therefore extremely important that you make it clear how to buy your book, as well as any other products or services that you offer. Make sure you make this obvious and make the process as seamless and hassle-free as possible. Doing so will lessen the chances of a reader becoming confused and frustrated or changing their mind. A good author website needs to function as your brand, a place where you can communicate with your audience and where readers can get in touch with you, and a place where people can buy your book. It's so worth getting it right, so make sure that you do. While it can be satisfying sitting down for hours and picking apart your novel, sometimes you don't have time for that. The great thing is that we don't have to spend huge chunks of our time on our writing to make it great. For those who can only grab a few minutes here and there are still ways to make your writing better and get that satisfaction that you've improved it each time you have a spare moment. So, what are some of the quick things you can do to make your writing better? Let's take a look. First, look for spelling mistakes. Spelling mistakes make your writing seem unprofessional and will immediately make a publisher think you haven't bothered to edit it well. Do a spell check of your work, but also look for mistakes where the word might be correct, but it's not exactly what you mean. Next, do a grammar check. Even if you intend to use a professional editing service, having your grammar and punctuation as good as it can be before you send it off will help make the process smoother and leave you with a better piece of work as a result. If your grammar isn't excellent, you can download a program such as Grammarly, which will help to weed out grammatical mistakes. And next, look for words you overuse. We all have our favourite words or phrases, and it's easy to overuse them in our writing. Try to skim through your work, weed out those that you end up repeating, and find alternatives to keep your writing interesting. And our next tip, take out adjectives and adverbs. While descriptive writing can conjure up a clear picture in your reader's imagination, too many descriptive words can make writing seem overwritten. Look for these at the end of dialogue, such as "he said lovingly" or "she said angrily." And next, write in the present tense. The present tense gives much more immediacy to your writing and draws the reader in. So try to rewrite instances where you've used the past tense and change them to the present. Our next tip: give your character an unusual trait. Give your character an interesting and arresting feature, such as a lisp, or a limp, or a strange scar, or a tattoo. This makes them seem unique and intriguing. Next, read your dialogue aloud. Reading dialogue aloud will help you decide whether it flows well and reflects how someone would talk. And next, ask a probing question. When reading through your work, try to ask an interesting question which could help you find a new direction for the chapter or storyline. Always think about your character's motivations for doing things and make sure their actions make sense. Next tip: break up long sentences. Long sentences can be tiring to read, so try to break up any that are a bit of a mouthful. And our final tip is delete anything that isn't needed. Keep asking yourself, is this necessary? Does this drive the story forward? If the answer is no, hit delete. These 10 quick ways will improve your writing and can be done bit by bit. So even if you don't have a lot of time to spare, you can still get that manuscript in great shape before you know it. Writing a non-fiction book isn't for everyone. Many writers don't even consider it as an option. However, while writing a non-fiction book is still difficult, if you have an area of knowledge and interest or passion that could be shared with the world, it might be worth considering. While the book market is saturated and not necessarily less competitive for those writing non-fiction books, if you can find a particular niche, with it you will find a particular audience eager and waiting to receive your work. Because of this, you may find that publishing, marketing and selling your non-fiction book is somewhat more straightforward than if you were to write a work of fiction. That's not to say that writing a non-fiction book is easy. The same principles apply, and the more work you do to prepare and map out your novel in the beginning stages, the more successful you are likely to be. So, do you think you could write a non-fiction book? Here are some questions to ask yourself. Do you have a unique style or tone that will make your book engaging and appealing to your readers? What's the competition like? Has it been done before? Non-fiction books should be specific, well-researched, well thought out, engaging, educating and entertaining. Be it a biography of your life, a guide about the life and behaviour of a special type of rare animal, or a book dedicated to sharing your passion for clown puppets. It doesn't matter how niche or bizarre your topic is, if you know there are readers out there and that you can present your material in a way that will appeal to them. You know you have the basis to make your book a success. If you think you could write a non-fiction book, the writing process is much the same as any other kind of book. Creating an outline, researching your material and breaking your book down into chapters will help you feel assured that your book idea can work and help you to stay focused and keep on track until it's finished. Writing a non-fiction book can be just as rewarding and satisfying and creatively exciting as writing a fiction book. So, if you have a weird and wonderful hobby, fascinating history, or in-depth knowledge of something unique and beautiful, why not share it with the world and see if you can create a work of non-fiction that's a raving success? When it comes to writing fiction, the sky's the limit, or is it? So many of us get confused by writing advice, and it's no wonder. Much of it can be contradictory, and to understand which pieces of advice to follow can be tricky. This has never been truer when it comes to the age-old advice of writing what you know. Writers are often told that writing what we know is the best way to write convincingly, reliably, to ensure the reader believes in us and our writing voice. However, the argument against this is, well, writing what we know can feel a little dull. The problem with being told to write what you know is that many things you know are just the things that you do on a daily basis. And the danger of writing about these things is that they neither inspire or interest you, nor do they inspire or interest your readers. Great stories are dramatic and action-packed, and while characters need to be relatable and ordinary in some ways, their journeys are not so. At the same time, if you completely ignore this advice and only write what you think might impress others or just to sell books, you risk sounding vague and unconvincing. If you aren't passionate about your writing, that's going to come across, no matter how hard you try to disguise it with big storylines and larger-than-life characters. Besides, what's popular now might have had its time in the spotlight by the time your book is finished, and then you'll have wasted all that time and effort for nothing. Often, by taking the advice to write what you love, you do end up writing what you know regardless. It's just the very best of what you know rather than the day-to-day. Writing about what you love is writing about what you are most passionate about, what fills you with emotion and gets you going. You'll therefore be more enthused by your writing project and more likely to be able to write it quicker and better, as well as feeling a far deeper sense of accomplishment and satisfaction once you complete it. Writing what you love will also make it easier for you after you've finished your book. If you need to promote and market it yourself, if you genuinely believe in it and are passionate about sharing your writing with the world, you'll be more dedicated to promotion and more likely to find creative and effective ways to do so. Your passion will naturally shine through, and potential readers will pick up on this. At the end of the day, some pieces of writing advice can be beneficial, while others can feel foreign and unnatural to you. And it's up to the individual writer to decide which writing pieces of advice work for them. Nothing is set in stone. That's the beauty of writing. And as long as you're trying to improve, to learn, and are continuing to write, then you can't go too far wrong. Hello, it's Peter here again for today. Quick ways to boost your writing confidence. Today, questions every writer should ask themselves. And today, how to write useful chapter outlines. Today, 10 ways to get motivated. And today, realistic ways to make money writing. And today, what skills does a good writer need? And today, 5 elements every author website should have. And today, I'd like to talk about unusual writing tips. And today, 5 simple tips to help write feature articles. And today, 5 dialogue writing tips that every writer should know about. And today, 10 quick ways to make your writing better. And today, easy ways to polish your novel. And today, how to be a confident... That's it for now. My name's Peter and I'll see you again soon. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up and to like this video. See you soon. It's always disheartening when you finally get your self-published book up on Amazon, only to find the days, weeks and months roll by and you don't seem to be selling any copies. For many authors, generating big book sales is difficult, and most may only see that a few a month or even less leave the shelves. It's no surprise, therefore, that after a while you start to lose faith and wonder where it all went wrong. At this point, it might be time to ask yourself the following questions, and it's important to be completely honest with your answers too. If you really want to boost your sales and get to the bottom of why your book might not be selling, then you need to make sure you're doing everything in your power you can to help make that happen. First, have you put your book up at a reasonable price? Take a look at what other self-published books in your genre are selling for. If your book is too expensive, then no one is going to buy it. Similarly, don't sell yourself too short. If your book is suspiciously cheap, people might be led to believe it's not worth reading either. Have you worked really hard on your book description? Your book description needs to immediately capture your readers and make them feel as though this is a book they simply must read. Spend time researching other people's descriptions to see what you can take from them, and take your time in order to perfect it and get it just right. Next, have you put your book in the right category? If your book sits in a category that's actually not right for it, people who find it there will be looking for something completely different, and therefore they'll be less likely to buy it. Think about your reader. What genre are they likely to go to search for a book like yours? Next, have you had your book's cover professionally designed? The importance of having a professional book cover design cannot be stressed enough. This is one thing that every writer should be happy to shell out for. Without one, readers simply can't take your book seriously and will assume the content is as amateur as the cover. And next, have you had your book professionally edited? Paying for a professional editor is so worth it if it means that your book is grammatically correct and error-free. If it means you have to wait to publish your book, so be it. Your reputation is so important. Have you done everything you can to build positive reviews? Make sure you're always pushing for new people to read and review your book. The more genuine positive reviews you have, the more people are likely to buy it. Have you made your book available as an ebook? Having your book only available as a paperback is really selling yourself short. In order to make sure you appeal to as wide an audience as possible, it's important to have your book available in both formats. Have you written more than one book? The more books you write, the more shelf space you take up, and therefore the easier it is for readers to find you. Keep on writing, build up a collection, and you'll be seen as a more professional and dedicated writer too. Have you marketed your book in every way possible? Let's be honest, there's probably more we could all do. Always try to keep marketing your book and try everything you can think of to improve its visibility. If you answer yes to all these questions, then you're giving yourself the very best chance possible to be discovered by your target readers and for them to enjoy and spread the word about your book. Remember, simply adding your book to Amazon's website isn't enough. It's all about how much time and effort you can dedicate to your book. That's what will most likely help see a boost in your sales and make your book a success. Marketing your book is arguably one of the hardest things an author has to do. For many authors, while they feel comfortable writing their stories, editing them and finding the best way to publish them, when it comes to actually getting people to read their books, they come to a grinding halt. The good news is that there's plenty you can do to promote your book and find new readers. Some of these take considerable time and effort, and you won't always get it right the first time. Some require a budget and others are simpler, though perhaps not quite as effective. So, let's look at some of the things you can try to encourage people to read your book and for you to find new readers. First, describe it well. A good book blurb is your chance to really sell your book to people that stumble across it and can make all the difference between those who simply carry on browsing and those who click to buy. Learn how to make your book sound as exciting and enticing as possible. Think about what makes you decide to read a book. Look at other book cover blurbs and descriptions and gain some inspiration from there. Next, book clubs. A good way of getting your book more widely read is to offer it to book clubs. There are book clubs everywhere, all over the world. Some are virtual and some are local groups. Find them, contact them and offer your book for free. You could even join in the discussion or come along to local groups to talk about it afterwards. Ask participants who loved it to promote it on social media, and so word of mouth will start to spread. And next, family and friends. When you first publish your book, you're confident that all your friends and family will definitely buy it and write you glowing reviews, of course. After all, you've got over 200 friends on Facebook. You'll practically be a bestseller one day. Well, unfortunately, the reality is that it is surprisingly, often bafflingly difficult to get them to do it. Be persistent with your friends and family and make sure you ask everyone. It's interesting to discover that those friends who you haven't heard of for maybe 5 years are delighted to read your book. Getting your own sister to read it, however, is like pulling teeth. Next, get it into libraries. Approach your library and explain you are a local author and ask if they would be willing to take a copy or two of your book. It may not be the way to sell more books, but once you are in, then it could lead to many people over the years reading your book. You could leave some cards promoting your book on the front desk. If you don't ask, you don't get. Next, find your audience. Promoting your book is all about finding the right people to read it. The importance of figuring out who your audience is and then appealing directly to them cannot be underestimated. Take your time to research your audience. Who are they? Where are they? How do they shop? What excites them? What turns them on? What turns them off? How much will they spend on a book? What time of day are they most likely to buy a book? Are they impulsive or cautious with their purchases? Do they love a bargain? What is irresistible to them? If you know your audience inside out, you'll find it much easier to come up with creative ways of reaching them. And next, freebies. Let's face it, everyone loves a freebie. And one surefire way to get someone to read your book is to give it to them for free. Do a Goodreads giveaway and you'll be surprised how many people enter. Gently ask if the winners would write you a review if they enjoyed it. If you've published your book through Amazon, you could offer it for free on Kindle for a limited period of time. If you do, you're likely to see a real boost in sales, which could lead to more people buying your book even when the free period has ended. There are no miracles or shortcuts when it comes to getting more people to read your book, and a combination of persistence and experimentation is best. If you keep persevering and trying new things, there's no reason why you shouldn't see the sales of your book increase. Writing feature articles is a great skill, and if done well can make you a lot of money. All businesses can use feature articles on their websites and as part of their marketing plan. And of course, all publications need feature articles too. So there's no shortage of demand. But how do you learn how to write great feature articles? Ones that you can pitch to publications or businesses and make money from. With these 5 simple tips, writing a feature article is easy, and they can be applied to any feature article regardless of the subject, which therefore turns you into a brilliant and versatile writer. Tip number 1, know your audience. This is so important and should have a massive influence on the style of writing, the information you give, the language you use, and so on. If you aren't clear about who you are targeting, ask the business or publication to clarify, or better still, do your own research to find out. You need to understand why the reader would come to that business for help, why they would choose to pick up that publication over all the others, and what they are searching for. Are they reading for need or for pleasure? Are they looking for specific information or just to be entertained? Knowing your reader inside out before you start writing will help tailor your article, so it not only appeals to them but is exactly the right kind of content to help and satisfy them. Tip number 2, understand the point. Before you begin writing your feature article, it's essential that you're clear on what purpose it's for. After your reader has finished, what do you expect them to do next? Is there a desired action or reaction that you need the reader to have? If so, make sure your writing is geared towards that and is persuasive and to the point. Next, why should your reader want to read this? Step outside yourself for a moment. Think about your target reader. Would they want to read your article? If so, why? If not, why not? You need to understand what's in it for them, what benefits are there for the reader, and why they would come to you as a source of these benefits or this information. Nowadays, you'll be hard-pressed to find a subject that hasn't been covered elsewhere. So unless you're writing about something incredibly niche or unusual, you need to come up with a fresh angle or make your writing the absolute authority on that particular topic. And next, plan your information. Before you start writing, do your research. prepare your information and come up with a structure of how your article will flow. If you're writing for the web, your style should be different to print features. This is because readers are far more likely to skim read your information, therefore make sure you let them know what it's all about from your headline. Also, break the writing up into essential points so they can quickly absorb the information. And next, be ready for questions. It's now so much easier for customers and readers to communicate and voice their opinions once they are finished with your piece. Be prepared for this and anticipate what questions they might have. Nothing looks worse than an "I'm not sure" response, or worse, just radio silence. Readers are a lot more forgiving if you are happy to respond to them. Though if someone is being particularly difficult, you may want to move this discussion away from the public eye by asking them to contact you directly. Once you've completed these steps, then you have done most of the hard work already. Therefore, writing your article should be a breeze. You'll be clear on tone, style and voice and purpose, as well as having the outline of your article already written. So there you go. Interesting, useful and engaging content that will appeal to your target audience and motivate them to act. Writing a feature article done and dusted. Today, what skills does a good writer need? When it comes to being a successful writer, it's about so much more than merely putting pen to paper. There are so many skills that a writer needs to employ, not only to write well, but also to cope with the stresses and pressures of the job. Working on all your skills will keep you being the very best you can be. So let's take a look at the strengths and skills every writer needs and how we can work on them to become better, more productive and proficient at what we do. So first of all, communication skills. Being able to openly express your ideas is what being a writer is all about. Of course, it's important to be able to do so on paper. However, having the ability to speak about your ideas, to summarize them succinctly and also listen to feedback from others and ask the right questions is also so useful when it comes to realizing your writing vision. Next, observation and detail. Writers need to be super observant. They need to have their eyes wide open at all times and pay attention to the little details of things. Being observant is not just about looking around you. However, it's also noticing the way people behave, interact and react, and the ability to understand and tune into their motivations for doing so. Being a great observer of the world will help you develop your characters and create your own fictional worlds in an authentic and exciting way. Next, problem solving. All writers come up against various problems as they work, and being a good problem solver is so important. You need to be able to analyze your ideas as well as be impartial and notice the strengths and weaknesses in your text and come up with workable solutions to help your characters overcome obstacles and improve your writing as a whole. And next, patience and calm. Writing is all about playing the long game. Not only can it take a long time to pull together a great piece of work, but waiting to hear back from publishers takes ages too. Being calm and positive about your writing, even in the face of rejection, will also keep you on the right track and minimize time spent wallowing. And next, fearlessness. Writers need to be brave. They need to take risks, to step outside their comfort zone and be okay with launching themselves into the unknown. Playing it safe just doesn't work for writers, so make sure you always write with courage. And next, spelling, grammar and punctuation skills. Yes, on a more practical note, writers should always work to improve their spelling, grammar and punctuation. Doing so will enable them to craft better prose from the outset and reduce time spent editing too. Next, research skills. An excellent piece of writing usually requires a lot of research. Being a good researcher takes practice. You need to know where to find information, the right questions to ask, and which bits of what you have learned to include in your story to make it more believable. Researching is a skill that doesn't come naturally to all writers, but the more you do, the better you will become. When it comes to being a good writer, it's all about dedication and practice. If you want to be a professional and productive writer, it's essential that you understand what skills you need and keep working on them to continually improve. And today, realistic ways to make money writing. We'd all love to be best-selling authors, wouldn't we? But let's face it, trying to make money from writing books is a pretty tough business. For most writers, relying on book sales as their income just isn't feasible. However, many writers don't want their writing to simply be just a hobby. They want to write full-time. So where do we find the balance? Luckily, there are plenty of ways to make money writing. And while they might not be as creative and exciting as being a published novelist, they will pay the bills and keep you doing what you love. So, here are some realistic ways to earn a living from your writing. First, articles. Writing articles for magazines, newspapers and other prominent publications is a great way of earning money through your writing. And it's not as difficult as you might think. There are thousands of different publications out there, all of which need content every time they publish. If you have a great story, why not find a suitable publication and pitch your idea to the editor? If you have a particular interest or hobby, use this to create useful, informative, engaging articles and find a magazine which specializes in that particular topic. There are publications on almost any subject, so use your interests and skills to help you land a great writing job. Remember, article writing is a skill and you need to make sure you do your research, follow submission guidelines and stick to any deadlines. If an editor rejects your suggestions, it doesn't mean you can't come back with another one. So just keep trying and you could end up with a regular writing gig, writing about something you are passionate about. And next, blogs. Writing guest blogs for popular bloggers remains largely unpaid, though it is a good way to get exposure. However, there are some exceptions where bloggers remain on the lookout for good quality writers to join them and will pay handsomely in return. It's also a good idea to think about writing your own blog. If yours starts to gain a following, you'll soon have advertisers asking if they can place adverts on your blog. Next, content creation. Many businesses are on the lookout for savvy content creators to write for them. The position could include writing anything from landing pages to press releases, but will keep you writing and will pay the bills too. And next, creative writing. If writing anything other than fiction sounds unbearable to you, there are also plenty of opportunities to write short stories and even poetry and submit these to relevant publications. If accepted, you can expect to be paid and could even be asked to become a regular contributor. If you're really serious about making a living writing, these could be great ways to get you started. It may not feel as glamorous and dreamy as landing a juicy publishing contract, but it will mean you can support yourself, continue to develop your skills as a writer, and still have time to work on your other creative projects as well. Now, that's got to be better than sitting in your office at your regular 9-to-5 job daydreaming of a life as a writer, right? And today, how to be a great travel writer. Travel writing is one of the most competitive and popular topics to write about. Let's face it, dreams of jetting around the world to stay in stunning hotels, wandering around beautiful beaches and trying local delicacies is pretty appealing, right? And if you can get to the top of your game, someone will actually pay you to do all of that, just for writing about it. It certainly doesn't sound like a bad career choice, if you ask me. However, breaking into travel writing can be tricky, and if you're hoping to give it a go, there are several things that you need to know before you sit down and put pen to paper. First, know your area. Now, that is not to say you have to be a seasoned traveller to become a travel writer. Obviously, it helps if you've been to the places you're writing about. But if you're just setting out with limited time and money, this may be difficult. If you can't jet off and explore just yet, then make sure you do some thorough research before you start. Read a lot about the area before you start and make sure you're fully clued up on the cuisine, culture and things to see and do. Watching videos is another great way to immerse yourself in a place and really understand the atmosphere out there. When it comes to writing your article, you need to understand and follow the same basic structure every time. There are the typical questions that every reader will want to know when reading a travel article. Where, when, who, why, how and what are all the basic ingredients that should form the basis of the article. This is true of many feature articles and news stories. You need to give the reader this information to engage them and keep them reading. Get a good brief. Travel articles come in all shapes and sizes. Some editors are looking for factual, non-flowery pieces that simply describe things in a matter-of-fact way, packing the content with useful, factually accurate information and nothing more. Others, however, are looking for a piece full of anecdotes and rich descriptive language which tells a story and helps the reader to truly imagine what it would be like to be there, perhaps persuading them that they need to book their ticket right away. Getting a solid brief from an editor means that you know what kind your article should be and write it up accordingly. Next, knowledge and passion. Knowledge and passion are usually desirable and should come across in your writing. The vast majority of travel articles are written in order to persuade the reader to make them interested in that particular place and ignite a desire in them to visit it themselves. Even if you have been asked to write a more factual piece, there's still room for this to come across. As with all articles, your lead must be succinct and attention-grabbing, and you must immediately make it clear where you are talking about. The when is where you can bring in details about the season. The who is the writer's perspective and an opportunity to connect with the reader. The why explains the reason the writer is in that particular destination. The how is the storyline, and the what are the details, the facts, the stories, the people. End your article on a high. End your article on a high, summarising what the article is about in an interesting way, and if required, ensure you have a strong and clear call to action so your readers know exactly what they need to do next. Travel writing is a fantastic industry to write for and can lead to some truly wonderful, life-changing experiences. So if you're hoping to become a travel writer, follow these tips and see where it takes you.